Good afternoon, good evening, good morning from whenever you may be joining us. We are going to give folks a few minutes to make their way into the webinar, but a quick reminder that tonight's episode of the Trying Family Web Series is being recorded. During today's webinar, please feel free to utilize the question and answer feature located at the bottom of your screen. Not only will we have time to take a few questions live with our panelists at the end of today's webinar, but we also have staff on the back end who will be assisting answering questions off air. Once again, welcome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us for the very first Trying Family Web Series session for the academic year 2023-2024. My name is Dan Perez. I'm the Assistant Director for the Office of Parent and Family Programs, and I am lucky enough to be doing this series for the fourth year in a row, going all the way back to 2020 when we started that fall, and it's crazy. It's been 4 academic years since. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to join us to hear from our experts in the Career Center to discuss health profession counseling and advising and all the resources that they provide and are connected to support your students as they start their journey at UC San Diego or continue their journey in pursuing a health career. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my colleagues, Jade Pearson and Ron Reyes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. So today we're just going to jump right in. I'm going to go through the agenda. Today we want to do some introductions, and then we will cover some Career Center resources. We'll go over HealthBeat and what that is. We'll talk about pre-health considerations and planning, which takes up the chunk of our presentation today. We'll talk about some final tips, and we'll have about 10 minutes or so for question and answer, and then we'll talk about some additional resources. So moving into introductions, my name is Jade Pearson. I am the Associate Director for Pre-Med and Pre-Health. And so I have a background in counseling with a specialization in higher ed. I got my undergrad degree in neuroscience. So I was on the track to pharmacy and kind of switched gears and decided that I wanted to give back to students and kind of help them on their career journeys. And so, yeah, really love being here. And I'll pass it over to Ron.
Hi, Ron Reyes. I am the other Associate Director here at the Career Center for Pre-Med Pre-Health Advisement. Just a little bit about my background. I've been with the Career Center and UCSD, well, the Career Center for a couple of years, with UCSD for about 5 years, previous to being part of HealthBeat and Pre-Health Pre-Med Advisement. I was in healthcare education with Extension and have had several years of experience both within admissions, academic advisement, and different health professions along the way. So I'm very happy to be here and be of support to our students.
So I want to jump into what we offer here at the Career Center. And so we will go to the next slide. Well, first, actually, we'll just really quickly cover the rest of our folks here in the Career Center. There's quite a few of us, as you can see, and we're divided up into different categories: arts and humanities, STEM, and grad and pre-grad students, which Ron and myself are a part of in the very bottom row there. And so, yeah, feel free to scan the QR code to learn more and go to our website. We're here to help no matter what background or what major you have, we have someone for each student. And so here at the Career Center, we offer many different services. Career consulting is one of our big services that we offer. We offer one-on-one appointments with students. If you can go to the next slide. And we schedule 30-minute appointments, or students can schedule 30 minutes with us during those one-on-ones. We offer virtual career fairs every quarter. We have hundreds of employers that sign up for those, where students can meet with them either in a group setting or one-on-one as well. We also have professional development opportunities, employer sessions. We do on-campus interviewing from time to time, and we have a ton of online resources that students can offer or access through their Handshake by clicking on Career Center and then Resources. And so when we meet with students, we like to talk about all of these different areas as well in our one-on-ones. So with that, I want to hand it over to Ron to go over Healthbeat.
All right, so just for everyone, if to further clarify, so Healthbeat is really kind of our central hub for providing pre-health advisement. So we have an Instagram, very easy, Healthbeat_UCSD, that has a lot of the different flyers to remind students and those who are following of the various events, activities, experiential opportunities, guest speakers, pretty much anything that's related to health that that we find or that becomes available. We put reminders about that over there on Instagram, just so that people have a very quick and easy way to access it. So you're always welcome to either scan the QR code or just follow, again, Healthbeat_UCSD. In addition to that, Healthbeat itself has its own website embedded within the Career Center, which breaks down a lot of the different need-to-know information based off of the most common professions within healthcare that students are looking at. So we want to make sure that students do know that, and we'll have a slide actually coming up to kind of just give you an idea what that might look like when you first go on there. Next slide. So again, it is a centralized platform for our students, but it's open to the public. We do also provide guidance that is reflective of all the different information and input that we get. So it's not just our own unique personal experiences with advisement, but it's also an amalgamation of getting input from our different professional partners. So we have pretty much all of the health professions at UCSD providing input to us. So that's School of Medicine, Pharmacy, the new PA program, Public Health. In addition, we consult with the various academic departments such as biology, chemistry, physics, public health, etc. And we work directly with some of the student orgs on campus to help disseminate and also get feedback on what are going to be the challenge areas and areas that students are going to need support in. So these are our partners in trying to better support our pre-health students here at UC San Diego. And then on the next slide, so just as a quick, point-by-point breakdown. Again, go to healthbeat.ucsd.edu if you want to just start exploring different health professions, or if you're not exactly sure what are some of the need to knows about a health profession. Onto, and you'll have to click, by the way, Dan. Again, Healthbeats as part of the Career Center for health specific advisement. Please schedule the appointments. Typically, we release our appointments on Fridays after 4:30. That's a good time to double check if additional appointments have been released for 2 to 3 weeks out. On our Career Center YouTube channel, there is a Healthbeat playlist. So with the playlist, we will record a lot of the major presentations that are going on throughout the year, even when we have guest speakers to talk about either different areas that the students should be aware of, or support when it comes to different ways to help become a stronger applicant, whether it's talking about experiences, personal statement, application process. We try and put everything on the Career Center channel, and then specifically for HealthBeat, we have our own playlist. And then as far as workshops and conferences, we typically average at least one workshop every quarter, alongside having large conferences that we support. The conferences that we support are student run, with the additional input from both HealthBeat as well as the various health professional schools on campus. So the two big ones students should be aware of is MEDS conference in winter quarter, underrepresented in medicine spring quarter. MEDS is usually held at School of Medicine. URIM, or underrepresented, is held at Skaggs School of Pharmacy. And then again, all of those workshops that we record then go on to the Career Center YouTube. And then besides that, for our incoming students, so our freshman students and first year transfers, we do have a course available, typically winter and spring quarter, for them to sign up for, which is FMPH 95, also known as MedPrep 101. That course is housed within public health, but it's open to all students, and it's really designed for if somebody is exploring or trying to get a better handle on strategy and personal planning for a medical profession or healthcare in general. That is a course that is available. It's a 1-unit course, typically midday, midweek, that students can sign up for. And then besides that, we also implemented quarterly drop-in. So there's traditionally a time in the year when drop-ins are very popular for academics and financial aid concerns with drop-in courses. And so around that same time, we are doing drop-in weeks, which are usually the 4th week of every quarter, so that while students are dropping in to ask questions about academics and finance with their other advisors, they can also talk to us if that changes their plans or maybe means that they're going to have to adjust some planning towards a healthcare profession that they're looking at. So that's another way that students can get additional immediate support when things happen during that very active time every quarter. All right, so just real quick, if you do end up going on the HealthBeat website and you are trying to explore, we have, again, listed on there kind of 9 very common areas that students ask about. So medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, PA, optometry, physical therapy / occupational therapy, veterinary school, public health, and nursing. So those are our most popular programs that we find students ask questions about. But even if you are interested in the healthcare profession outside of those, we still provide support, advisement, and go about helping students get to the important information that they need to apply to these various health professions. All right, and so just a quick breakdown again. So really with HealthBeat, we're here to be that extra layer of support when planning. So it's about not only healthcare career exploration, but strategy and implementation, making sure students are aware of those resources, and then hopefully building up their skill set alongside their experience so that they can become a strong applicant for their graduate application process, regardless of which profession they end up applying to.
And so with that, we'll transition into pre-health, pre-med considerations and planning. So first things first, next slide, we want to go over self-exploration. With students, I look at 4 different qualities or 4 different aspects when I'm talking with students. I want to know about personality or preferences. I want to know about interests. I want to know about skills, and I want to know about values. Those are 4 separate entities, right? You can be interested in something and not good at it, and vice versa. And so it's important to us to talk with the student and understand, their background, what they see in the career, and how what has drawn them to the career of their choice. And we'll go over those. We'll talk about assessments. And it's important to also consider the developmental stage that the student is in. Someone in their freshman year may feel differently about a certain career or field than they will their junior year, possibly. So it's also important for us to consider that when working with students, as well as lifestyle considerations. Does a student want a balance of family time and work? or what does that look like, right? How long does the student want to be in school? Should they look at certificates or should they look at more advanced degrees or both, right? And so it's highly individualized to each student. Next slide. We want to help the student focus on their why. And so like I said, the 4 things that we focus on are the interest, skills, personality, and values. So I'll ask the student, to reflect and ask themselves, how do I make decisions and work with others? What motivates me? Is it money? Is it free time? Is it helping others? Everyone has a different motivation or value system, and that's totally fine. What do I enjoy doing is what I want the students to reflect on. And then what am I actually good at doing? Am I good in the lab? Am I good with manual dexterity? Am I great with critical thinking? Do I pay great attention to details, or do I see an overall picture better in a larger context? And so again, each person has a different preference and a different style in their approach to their career and their life, right, and their schooling. And so it's important to have these conversations and make sure that each session with the student is highly individualized. Next slide. So then we want the student to ask themselves, why healthcare, right? So not just why, do I want to go into the field, or how do I want to impact people, but why do I want to go into healthcare, and how do I want to impact folks in healthcare? So a question that I would have a student ask is, what kind of healthcare do I want to provide? Or where do I want to provide this healthcare? You'll have to click about 4 times, Dan. Can I handle the sight of blood, right? Because that can be highly uncomfortable for some people, and some people don't mind it at all. Who do I want to provide this healthcare to, and how do I want to provide this healthcare? So what types of settings do you want to be in? If you go into medicine, do you want to go more into dermatology, or do you want to go into the ER? Because trust me, those are 2 completely different aspects of medicine. Those are 2 different contexts. And so it's important to really talk about that. And we go over with the student kind of this contingency, right? So it starts with self-exploration. Who am I? What is my why? And then going into research. So we offer tools through our Healthbeat website, and we provide tools to the students to do research, and we tell the students how to do research. And then it goes into networking and asking questions and shadowing, right? Reaching out on LinkedIn. I always tell students, if you don't have a LinkedIn, please make a LinkedIn. Even when I was working with high school students, I would have them make a LinkedIn. So by the time they got to college, they were set up and ready to network, right? And so that's the third part of the contingency. And then the very last part is try it out. You won't know it until you try it. But at least when you do the research and you self-reflect and you ask questions, that will position you to choose experiences that are more aligned with where you really want to be, versus kind of cherry picking different experiences and trying them out by chance or randomly, which I've definitely seen students do that. But students are here for a very limited time, 4 years. And so I want them to maximize that time. Next slide. So another question is, what major do I choose? That's a common question that we get. So I tell students, a major that interests you is very important. Honestly, and hear me when I say this, your major matters little compared to the holistic pieces of your application, such as letters of recommendation, personal statements, extracurriculars, right? There's so much that goes into an application to make you a competitive applicant that majors and minors don't really, the major, the minor that you have, they matter little compared to everything in context. And also, we want students to major in something that interests them, right? Because if it interests the student, then they will likely do better in that. And the GPA does hold a good considerable chunk of applying to grad school, right? And applying to med school. And so again, that's why we say, Sure, we get questions. What about the rigor of these courses? I mean, you're pre-med, you're going to have to take the prerequisites anyways, no matter what major. Even if you're in human development, you will still need to take the prerequisites, anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, OChem, right? You're taking all these courses. They are heavy, they're heavy coursework, right? And so it's important to understand that you don't need to major in human bio to go to med school. You simply need the prerequisites, and you also need, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, extracurriculars, and to be a well-rounded applicant. And so whatever you major in, do it well. If you are interested in minoring, maybe it's something where you want to learn a little bit more in that will help you specialize later on. But again, your application will be looked at holistically with your overall GPA, your MCAT score. There's so many aspects that go into the your application that I don't want you to harp too much on a minor, especially a minor, right? Let alone a major. So, and even with a science major, a non-science major, you can take science courses, right? So the only upside of taking a major such as human bio or general bio is that oftentimes the prerequisites are already built into the degree plan. And so you don't have to do too much planning outside of your degree plan to get the prerequisites done. So that's usually what I tell students. But if they're not interested in human bio as a whole and they want to do neuroscience or something like that, I say go for it and work with your academic advisor to make sure that you have that you can schedule those prerequisites into your schedule. Next slide. So here are some example courses. So we have prerequisites required for medicine on the left, and then some other recommended courses that that certain med schools would like to see. And so bio and lab, general chem and lab, OChem and lab, calculus plus stats, physics and lab, biochemistry, and then we have genetics, physiology, microbiome, cell bio, sociology or psychology, and then human anatomy. We get a lot of questions, you know, where can I take human anatomy? You can take that through UCSD Extension or at any of your local community colleges. And so community colleges are pretty cost effective, but again, there is a special discount for students who are currently enrolled at UCSD to take them at UCSD Extension. And so if you have questions, you'll want to reach out to Extension directly about registering and taking classes. A lot of students will take the anatomy class over the summers. Next slide. So a lot of students ask, do I retake AP or IB credit? And the short answer is it depends. Usually, no, do not retake your AP credit. And so, yes, it's potentially acceptable if the institution lists as only recommended. However, we advise students to take an upper division course in the area. So for example, if the student has AP bio, we advise students to take microbiome, right? Or biochemistry or any sort of upper division biology that will show that they have the aptitude in biology, right? And so I tell students, you know, there's so many classes that you need to take. Don't retake the AP courses if you don't have to. And then for IB credit, it's a little bit, it's very similar. They are potentially acceptable if the med school lists the course as recommended. However, it's just they may have a certain policy. So you'll want to read the policy on the school's website regarding IB credit, just to be sure. And you should always, just as a best practice, check with the school that you want to apply to clarify any questions that you may have. So Ron and I, we give you advice, and we advise you for most med schools and kind of a general rule of thumb, but it's the safest and best practice to reach out to your school of choice to just clarify anything that on their website that is unclear. But the overall answer here is don't retake AP credit before talking with us, because oftentimes you won't need to. You will simply need to take an upper division coursework in that area that you took AP credit to basically show your aptitude. Next slide. for course load, we tell students take 12 to 16 units to be a full-time student. Health professional schools do like to see academic rigor. However, lighter loads are acceptable with extracurricular activities, but you just want to remember to pace yourself, because yeah, again, once you want to keep your grades up, once your grades start to fall, it becomes difficult to get your GPA back up. And I find that GPA and probably letters of recommendation are a limiting step for a lot of students when applying to medical school. Because with letters of recommendation, that's a third party that you're going to need to talk to, right? And you need to give them time to write that. You need to find the right folks to write that for you. So that's something that we tell you to focus on now. And then also, yes, with GPA, it is difficult to get that back up once it falls. Next slide. And then, so some experiences or activities that we recommend are clinical and non-clinical experience. So there's a plethora of different types of experiences here. The main thing is you want to look at the AAMC core competencies for entering medical school students. And so the reason that we recommend all these different experiences is so your student is well-rounded and ready to go into med school, and also meets those 15 core competencies that the AAMC lists on their website. And so even if there is experience outside of clinical or healthcare experience, that will still help you excel as not only a professional, but as a person, right? And so these are just a few of the examples. Next slide.
All right, I get to hop on here for service and clinical experience. So we get a lot of questions about telling the difference, understanding how it's going to be interpreted from an admissions perspective. So the first thing I tell everybody is they're not mutually exclusive, but there are differences in how they are termed. So service is usually in terms things that are volunteer-based, usually designed to help a community or a group that is either needing additional support or doesn't have access to the same level of finances, or even have different circumstances such as being historically marginalized, low income, etc. So some organizations, as an example, we have Mustard Seed Project, which works with the homeless, Educational Core, which is more of an educational-based volunteering, and Homeless Heal. So these, again, are just examples of what service is defined as, which is designed to show impact and meaningful work towards supporting communities that need additional help. As far as clinical experience, this is a big one. A lot of people say, well, what about clinical's research? Or what about this experience that is more volunteer? My response would be, it depends. So clinical experience directly affects patients. Just to give you an idea, I've worked with multiple admissions directors from multiple schools in medicine, and I usually define clinical experience as working directly with patients alongside healthcare professionals within a healthcare or clinical setting that provides either healthcare education or treatment contributing to their health outcome. So that is as close as we're going to get to clinical. And I understand that a lot of these experiences aren't going to fit everything in that definition. But what most admissions will say, if it gets close to at least maybe 3 or 4 of those components with a patient care focus, then most likely it's going to fall within clinical experience. So that's how I like to kind of put that out there when understanding the differences between service experience and clinical experience. And then just to give you an idea, we have EMS at UCSD, which supports students with looking at becoming EMTs. We have Flying Samaritans, which does health across the border. We have International Health Collectives, which does similar health volunteer work, and Global Health Bridges. So there are a lot of different opportunities, both within student orgs as well as outside of the UC, that students look into to start developing some of these experiences. I will also say, because shadowing is not working directly with patients, it typically is not going to be interpreted as direct patient care. Next slide. So research, a question that we get all the time, is research required to get to medical school? The answer is absolutely not. I even have on record, video recorded, the Dean of Admissions for UCSD School of Medicine saying it is not required and they have multiple students without research. However, research can be helpful for some of the schools that you're applying to. And the main reason why it can be helpful is because sometimes it will give you additional knowledge in certain areas of focus that can demonstrate interest. It can also show you have a better exposure to understanding rigorous sciences, give you good networking opportunities. You can work with researchers who could also potentially be doctors, which then can be a great option to get a letter of recommendation from a professional. But I do put it out there. The only time that we really see research being a non-negotiable is for our MD PhD applicant, which is somebody who's committing to doing both a medical doctorate as well as additional PhD research in their field. Outside of that, we always tell students research should be something that you specifically want to do based off of interest, more so than trying to make it a primary point for admissions. Next. All right. So with that, and a slight hint at PIs being great for networking and mentorship, in general, one of the things that we always recommend to students is start thinking early about networking and building relationships. Jade had alluded to it with making a LinkedIn profile and being able to reach out. And the reason is, while you are here at UCSD, you are connected to an incredibly large network. Right? You can have, as a student, apply for coffee and dine with a professor, where as long as the professor has signed off on it and the university has given you the go-ahead, take them out to coffee or have maybe a quick lunch chat with them funded by the university. Show up to professor office hours and advisor office hours. Again, research. If you become a TA or IA for a class, guess what? The instructor is captive to you for that 3 months that you are supporting them, and then you could build a relationship being somebody who is helping them be an instructional aid for a class. Sometimes students will say, are there classes that the student load is smaller so that I might have more face time with the instructor in some of my advanced coursework that I am taking? Another great opportunity. In general, we are just trying to find different ways that students can network, because that expansion of network also means you get more opportunities to get additional support, resources, and even potential letters of recommendation. I will also put a plug for, join an affinity group. Doesn't matter if it's healthcare or not. Being part of different groups on campus gives you access to another network of people who are going through similar processes as you, trying to get through their education and looking at programming that provides additional value and meaning for you while you are here. Right. So these are just kind of a quick breakdown of some of the things that we strongly recommend every student do while you're at the institution. Next slide. So quickly getting into the nuts and bolts of what does working towards medicine look like. A lot of people will say medicine is a 7 to 10 year process in itself. If we include being an undergraduate student to that process, it becomes 11 to 15 years before practice, right? And so this is a very long road. So the beginning of that road is your academic experience. We list some of the courses there. Once you get close to being able to apply, you are going to take your MCAT, which means that hopefully you've completed your prerequisites so that you're better prepped for it. And then along the way, while you're doing your MCAT, hopefully you are going to then have your scores, build up experience, and be ready to apply. I typically see a lot of students say, well, am I going to apply junior or senior year? It depends. A lot of students statistically will apply at the end of their senior year to allow them more time to be successful in the application process. And then once you are actually in med school, I remind everybody, this is when you actually can start talking about specialization. You're going to have 2 years of didactic or lecture work alongside 2 years of clinical rotation. You are going to go through rigorous testing. And then eventually, once you pass all of your steps and USMLE testing, you then will get into residency. And so residency is the last step, and that's where we see the 3, 4, 5 years of residency, depending on specialization. Sometimes a little bit longer if you do a residency and then get picked up for fellowship as part or going past residency. So, you know, it can be a very long road, but this is just to give you an idea of the full cycle from undergraduate to end of practice for students if they decide to go into the medical route. All right, so what to do starting out? Work with us, create a plan for yourself, and then meet with us to get in temperature check on, are you missing anything? We provide 3 and 4 year guides as a template for students to review and think about what they're going to be doing while they're here at UCSD in order to be successful and apply to a healthcare profession. If it's medical school, great. If it's other professions, great. We want to make sure that students are going to be organized about that. In addition to that, like I said before, network, follow us, get information about what's going on. Always look for different opportunities, whether it's healthcare related service or research. Reflect on your why throughout the entire process, right? And then start learning more about healthcare. The more students typically invest in understanding why healthcare and are being knowledgeable about the parts about the profession that would be good to know, the better they are going to be in the long run in preparation for application. And then a quick extra tip. If you're just starting out, I'm talking to you, my first and second years, it's okay to focus on academics first. You need to get a strong handle on your education and do well so that you're not worrying about that alongside other things that you're needing to do in order to be successful. If you need to get tutoring, if you want to utilize our counseling services, please make sure you are getting the support that you need from the resources that we provide you so that you can stay on track and be successful. All right, some quick final tips. Again, focus on academics, utilize your resources, create a timeline because timing is everything. And any healthcare profession is a marathon. It is not a race, it is a marathon. It is a very long process. And so we want to make sure that people are pacing themselves, finding mentors, building relationships, and growing along the way in order to be successful. A lot of times we'll see students try and rush the process. That's not how it's going to work in healthcare. It's not going to work for application. We want you to take the time and really make sure that this is not only a good process for you, but it's also the right process and profession for you. And then just a quick plug on some resources. So if you need to network, we have a vast alumni network. Tridents Connect, if for all our UCSD students, will connect them to faculty, alumni, staff, and fellow peers. So this is a great opportunity for a lot of students. It is usually a missed opportunity. If they don't at least make an account and try it out, it's very easy to set one up. And then once you're on there, you can always be looking at different professionals who have done the work, are UCSD alumni, and are happy to talk to you. So those are just some quick resources, and then we can, I believe we can transition into Q&A.
Thank you both for that very informative overview of what it takes to pursue a health career for our UC San Diego students. And thank you all for being very busy in the Q&A. We've been working to answer some questions offline, but I do have some that we would like to answer live. So first question that I have for you, Ron and Jade, is UC San Diego students experience a hard time to get recommendation letters from professors. You mentioned about pursuing ways to get letters of recommendation, but what would you say is the best way or resources your department may provide to help students get recommendation letters?
So I can, yeah, I'll hop on that one first. So as far as letters of recommendation, it is one of those things where we advise students on how to network. There is a Dine and Coffee with the Professor program that's offered here at UCSD where students can set up a meeting with their professor. And so I can find a link and provide that. However, we advise students to make sure that they're sitting in front in their large lectures, make sure they're asking questions. Most importantly, going to office hours and, letting the teacher or the professor know, like, hey, I really love this class. It's really helpful in my career plan going into medicine or XYZ, right? Whichever career path they've chosen, and to kind of learn to build rapport, because this is a skill that you need for life anyways. And so I do empathize and understand that at a larger university, it can be intimidating, but I tell students, find the professor that kind of matches your vibe more or less, right? You can tell the type of people you get along with more than others, and kind of target those professors to ask questions, go to office hours, and build rapport, because maybe you'll feel a little bit more comfortable talking to that professor over another one. No, I don't know if you had anything else to add.
I would also say from a pre-grad advisement side, I think the consensus is talk to them early. A lot of times we will get students who will be messaging or asking questions about letters of recommendation and get going towards that way too late in the process, right? Like 3 months before application is still too late. You need time to know whether or not the instructor is open to writing letters of recommendation or providing mentorship or entertaining a conversation. A lot of faculty members will say if somebody doesn't start that process 6 months before whenever they're going to apply, regardless if it's healthcare or any other graduate program, they might say no, because you didn't give them the opportunity to have a conversation just to know what their availability and how they want to communicate and network with the student. So it's always better to start early in the process, even just having a conversation a year out from graduation, just saying, I really really value your opinion and how you teach certain subjects. I would love to have a further conversation about you if you either mentor students or provide letters of recommendation for students who work with you. I'm really serious about going into this profession and I would love your advice, right? But having that conversation should be way early in the process so that one, if they're open to it, and two, if they are, you can then have enough time to develop the relationship. That's something that we find a lot of times tends to be a problem, is students not starting on this process earlier than later.
Yeah, and Ron, that's great advice for I think any student outside of the health profession as well, is ask early and give folks enough time. Another question we have from a family member is dentistry the same as medicine in relation to prerequisite classes?
I'll jump on that one. The short answer is they are not the same. There will be slight differences. So we have a 4-year plan that we show with students, as well as like with a list of prerequisites. They'll be similar, but it's not going to be the same. Ron, I don't know if you have any like specifics you want to jump into.
I mean, I will agree with that. I feel dentistry does have sometimes a school that will put in an additional requirement here and there based off of what they find is more appropriate for them and their program. But as a starting point, that's why we also publish on each of those sections of the profession a starting list of classes students should be taking for purposes of helping them prepare for that particular profession. It's not just medicine, but even on our dentistry, veterinary, etc. We actually have course listings of what students should at least start with, alongside additional recommendations, either based off the differences depending on the school that you're applying to, or general courses that might be included based off of the schools that they're applying to. So it's not the same. There's a lot that is going to be similar, but for those differences, we always recommend not only looking at our recommended course sequences, but also researching the top schools that you want to apply into, just to be sure.
And I went ahead and added a document so you can see the comparison of the prerequisites between different healthcare professions.
Awesome. Thanks, Jade. And in talking about applying to schools, we have another question. How many med schools does a typical student apply to? And is there an approach to also applying to a range of schools depending on how hard it is to get in?
You definitely should. I'll start this answer. You definitely should apply at least to 15. Many students we tell to apply to around 25. Depending on your financial situation. It's totally understandable if you need to apply to less, but this is what we recommend. As far as targeting schools, on the AAMC MSAR website, MSAR is basically the medical school's admissions requirement. You can see some of their average data. And so similar to applying to undergraduate institutions, you'll want target schools, reach schools, and safety schools based on where you're falling. And you should spread a wide net as far as location, if you can, I know California, San Diego is beautiful. It is very competitive to stay here. So, to apply once and to get in, you definitely want to apply to a variety of schools in different areas across at least the state, if not the nation.
And then I'll add on to that. We also have appointments and workshops specific to application strategy, depending on the student's circumstance. So for example, if I know somebody is going to be struggling financially, but they did manage to get the funding provided by the AAMC to pay up to 20 schools on their application, all right, we will set that as the target, and then we will think very purposely about the schools that they're applying to. Does it make sense? Not only location, but are they positioning themselves based off of population, affinity groups, cost analysis benefit? Are they okay with the overall cost of their education? There are a lot of different factors when selecting a school, and usually we spend a lot of time, detailed time, based off of the student's particular circumstance, making sure that that is being part of the discussion, other than just having a raw number of schools. Yeah.
Thank you both. And I know we have a ton of questions, and we only have time for one more. This one, does clinical experience have to be paid to be considered clinical experience?
Nope.
No.
Easy answer. If you do not get your question answered, please stay on, or please email parents@ucsc.edu, and we will promise that we will do our best to follow up and ensure that you get an answer to your question. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Jade, so much for spending time with us today and sharing your expertise. I see you've got a great many QR codes for resources here for families and their students. Again, folks, this presentation, a copy will be emailed out to all registrants tomorrow, along with a recording of today's session. So if you're not getting all these links jotted down, don't worry, because it will be sent out to you. Again, just some additional resources here for you all. Again, these are all linked that will be sent out. And finally, thank you for attending this session of the Trying Family web series. We appreciate you taking time to support your student as they are pursuing their journey in their health profession, wherever they may be at in that journey. Please stay connected with us. Again, our email address is on screen if you would like to follow up and send an email for your question. We also have our helpline that is available 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, so please call and we can answer any questions you may have. And our social accounts, especially that one at the end for our YouTube channel, where the recording of this session and every single Trying Family web series session will be posted throughout the academic year. Thank you again for joining us today. And our next episode of the Trying Family web series will be in January. We'll be returning just after the holiday break, and we will be presenting on some very important academic topics in relation to the resources provided by the university in connection to the Writing Center and the Teaching and Learning Commons. More information will be released as we finalize that presentation, but please keep an eye on your email for your next invitation to our second episode of the Trying Family web series. Thank you all, and have a great rest of your day.